Dominic Ashford's fingers hovered over the keyboard as he watched the timestamp on his security monitor tick past midnight. His eyes burned from 18 hours of staring at contracts, but he didn't move from his desk. Instead, he reached for his Rolex, deliberately placing it on the coffee table beside his leather couch. His wallet followed, positioned just carefully enough to look careless, $5,000 in crisp hundreds fanned out like bait. He'd caught 3 thieves this way. 3 employees who smiled to his face and stole from him the moment they thought he wasn't watching. His ex-fiancée had been the worst, caught on camera downloading company secrets while he slept beside her. That betrayal had cost him $20 million and whatever remained of his ability to trust. Dominic stretched out on the couch, his suit jacket still on, tie loosened just enough to sell the exhaustion. It wasn't hard to fake. He was exhausted. But exhaustion made you vulnerable, and vulnerability invited predators. He'd learned that lesson the expensive way. The hidden cameras were already recording, 4 angles covering every corner of his office. Night vision mode activated. He controlled his breathing, forcing it into the deep, steady rhythm of sleep. His eyes closed, but his mind remained razor-sharp, counting the seconds until she arrived. Elena Martinez, the new night maid, too quiet, too meek, too perfect. In Dominic's experience, perfect people were just better liars. She'd been working for him for 3 weeks now, and in that time she'd never asked for anything, never complained, never even made eye contact for longer than a second. The other staff had noticed too. She's hiding something, his head of security had warned. Nobody's that humble unless they're running from something, Dominic had agreed. Everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. He just needed to find out what Elena's something was. The door creaked open at 12:47. He heard the soft whisper of her footsteps, the kind of careful, practiced silence that came from not wanting to be noticed. His heart rate picked up despite himself, adrenaline sharpening his senses even as he kept his body perfectly still. Through his closed eyelids, he sensed the office lights flicker on, then quickly dim. She was here. Elena stood frozen in the doorway, her cleaning cart forgotten behind her as her eyes landed on the man sprawled across the couch. Mr. Ashford. Asleep. She'd never seen him like this, vulnerable and unguarded, his sharp features softened by something that almost looked like peace. Then she saw the wallet, the watch, the laptop left unlocked and glowing on his desk, her breath caught in her throat. She should leave. Come back later when he'd gone home. That would be the smart thing to do. But she'd learned from the other maids that Mr. Ashford sometimes slept in his office for days during busy periods, and if she didn't clean tonight, she'd fall behind on her schedule. She couldn't afford to fall behind. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Elena took a careful step forward, then another, her worn sneakers silent on the marble floor. The office was freezing. The air conditioning was always set too high, something the other staff complained about constantly, but she never did. Complaining required a voice, and she'd learned long ago to make herself as invisible as possible. But Mr. Ashford was shivering. She could see it now, the way his shoulders hunched slightly, his hands tucked close to his chest. He'd worked himself into exhaustion and collapsed here, too tired to even make it to the leather chair that faced the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Elena's eyes moved to the wallet again, all that money just sitting there. She knew exactly how much $5,000 was. It was 2 months of her daughter's medical bills. It was the reason she worked 3 jobs and slept 4 hours a night. It was the difference between keeping the lights on and sitting in the dark. Her hands trembled as she moved closer. Dominic felt his pulse spike. Here it comes. He'd been right. She was going to take it. They always did. But Elena's hands moved past the wallet entirely. Instead, she reached for the thin cardigan draped over her cleaning cart, the faded blue one with the small embroidered flowers on the collar. She hesitated for just a moment, her fingers tracing the delicate stitching, before gently draping it over Dominic's shoulders. His breath nearly hitched. That wasn't supposed to happen. Elena stepped back, studying him with an expression that Dominic couldn't see but could somehow feel. Then she moved to the light panel by the door, her fingers dancing across the switches until the harsh fluorescent overheads dimmed to nothing, leaving only the soft amber glow of his desk lamp. Enough light so he wouldn't wake up disoriented in complete darkness, but dim enough to let him rest. She returned to the couch, kneeling beside it with a quiet grace. From her cart, she produced a small sewing kit, the kind that came in cheap plastic cases from dollar stores. Dominic's suit jacket had a loose button. She'd noticed it days ago, had watched it grow looser and looser, threatening to fall off entirely. Her hands worked quickly, competently, the needle flashing in the dim light as she secured the button with tiny, precise stitches. She was so close he could hear her breathing, soft and measured, and underneath it something else. A whisper. "You work too hard," she said, so quietly he almost missed it. "Someone should tell you that." Dominic's chest tightened. Alina finished with the button and stood, collecting a pen and a torn corner of printer paper from his desk. She wrote something, her handwriting shaky but careful, then placed the note beside his laptop. From her pocket, she pulled out a small origami crane, its wings folded from pale yellow paper. She set it on top of the note, her fingers lingering on it for just a moment before pulling away. Her eyes moved to the wallet one final time. She stared at it for what felt like an eternity, and Dominic's entire body tensed beneath the cardigan, waiting for the inevitable reach, the predictable betrayal. But Alina simply turned away. "Well, Mr. Ashford," she whispered to the empty room, "you deserve peace." Then she was gone, the door clicking shut so softly it was barely a sound at all. Dominic lay frozen for a full minute after she left, his mind spinning. Then he sat up abruptly, the cardigan falling into his lap. It was threadbare, he realized now, worn thin in places where it had been washed too many times. The embroidered flowers weren't just decoration. They were covering holes. This was her only sweater. And she'd given it to him. His hands shook as he reached for the note. "You work too hard, Mr. Ashford. Please rest. You deserve peace." The handwriting was unpracticed, but earnest. Each letter formed with the careful attention of someone who didn't take words lightly. Beside it sat the origami crane, impossibly delicate, its wings spread as if ready to take flight. Dominic's jaw clenched as he stood, moving to his desk with swift, angry strides. He pulled up the security footage, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he scrubbed back to 12:47. He needed to see it again, needed to understand what game she was playing, but watching it the second time was worse. And the third time shattered something inside him he didn't know was still intact. The way she'd looked at him, not with calculation or greed, but with something that looked dangerously close to compassion. The way her fingers had trembled as she draped the cardigan over him, as if the act of giving cost her something she couldn't afford to lose. The way she'd stared at that money, and he could see it now, the war playing out across her face. Need versus integrity, survival versus principle, and integrity had won. "What have I become?" The words escaped him in a broken whisper. He rewound the footage again, volume turned up, and listened to her final words. "Sleep well, Mr. Ashford, you deserve peace." No one had said anything like that to him in years. Maybe ever. Dominic picked up the phone, dialing a number he'd hoped he'd never have to use again. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "Marcus, it's Ashford. I need a full background check." "Are we investigating?" "Alina Martinez, one of my night maids." There was a pause. "You sure about this, Dom?" "Last time you had me dig into someone's life. Just do it. I need to know everything." He hung up before Marcus could argue, then slumped back in his chair, the cardigan still clutched in his hands. The origami crane sat on his desk, catching the lamplight, casting tiny shadows that looked like birds in flight. Dominic didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. The file arrived at 6 in the morning, delivered by encrypted email. Dominic opened it with coffee in hand and dread in his chest. Alina Sofia Martinez, age 34, widow. The first photo showed a younger version of her, smiling, her arms wrapped around a little girl with dark curls and her mother's gentle eyes. Lily Martinez, 7 years old, deceased. Dominic's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He scrolled further, his stomach turning with each new detail. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, diagnosed at age 5. 2 years of treatments, experimental drugs, clinical trials that promised hope and delivered agony. Alina had worked 4 jobs to pay for it, the report stated. 4 jobs, and it still hadn't been enough. Lily had died 6 months ago. The medical debt she'd left behind was $127,000. Current employment, 3 jobs. Night maid at Ashford Enterprises, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Morning waitress at Joe's Diner, 6 a.m. to noon. Weekend stock clerk at Morrison's Grocery. Monthly income after taxes, $2,200. Monthly debt payments, $1,800. Rent, $600. Utilities, $150. The math was brutal. She had negative $50 a month for food. There was a note from Marcus at the bottom of the file. Dom, she walks 4 miles round trip to your estate every night. Can't afford the bus. Been sleeping on park benches between shifts. Last week she passed out at the diner. They almost fired her, but she begged them to let her stay. She still sends $50 a month to St. Mary's Children's Hospital, the place where her daughter died. Says it's for the other kids. Dominic closed the laptop and buried his face in his hands. The cardigan sat on his desk, next to the crane, next to the note. He'd set a trap for a thief and caught an angel instead. He'd tested her humanity and discovered his own had died somewhere along the way, buried under suspicion and cynicism, and the weight of a world that had taught him trust was for fools. The worst part was that she'd known. On some level, she must have known what he was doing. The wallet positioned too perfectly. The expensive watch left careless and gleaming. It had been a test, and she'd taken it. Not the money, not the watch. She'd taken the test itself and transformed it into something he didn't have a word for, grace. Maybe that was the word. He sat in his office until the sun rose, painting the city in shades of gold and amber, and thought about a woman who gave away her only warm layer to a man who'd been trying to prove she was a criminal. At 7:45, his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Ashford, are you all right? You look. I need you to do something for me, Patricia." His voice came out rougher than intended. "Elena Martinez, the night maid, what time does her shift end?" Patricia checked her tablet. 2 a.m., sir, but she usually stays until 2:30 to finish up. Then, I'm sorry. Where does she go after her shift ends? Patricia hesitated, her expression careful. "I believe she walks to Joe's Diner downtown. Her next shift starts at 6. She walks." "Yes, sir. 4 miles, in the dark, to sleep on a bench for 3 hours before serving coffee to people who probably never looked her in the eye. Thank you, Patricia. That will be all." She lingered in the doorway. "Sir, if I may, whatever you're planning, be gentle. Elena is. She's been through a lot. Do you know that?" Patricia's smile was sad. Because people who have been through nothing don't move through the world the way she does. Like she's apologizing for taking up space. After she left, Dominic pulled up the security footage from the past 3 weeks, watching every moment of Elena's shifts. He saw her now, really saw her, in a way he hadn't allowed himself to before. The way she cleaned with meticulous care, treating even the smallest tasks with dignity. The way she never ate in the break room with the other staff, always disappearing to the back stairwell with her vending machine crackers. The way she sometimes stopped in front of the windows overlooking the city, just for a moment, and the expression on her face looked like someone trying to remember what hope felt like. In one clip from a week ago, she'd found a spider in the corner of his office. The other maids would have killed it. Elena had carefully captured it in a paper cup and released it outside, whispering something he couldn't hear. He enhanced the audio, played it back. "Go find your family." Dominic's throat tightened. That night, he didn't pretend to sleep. He waited for her, standing by the windows, the cardigan folded carefully in his hands. She arrived at midnight, her cleaning cart rattling softly as she pushed it through the door. When she saw him standing there, awake and alert, the color drained from her face. "Mr. Ashford, I'm so sorry. I should have asked before I..." She was backing toward the door, hands raised as if to ward off a blow. "Please don't fire me. I'll buy you a new sweater." "I just thought you were cold and I..." "Elena, stop." She froze, her entire body trembling. Dominic took a step forward, then stopped when she flinched. "I'm not going to fire you. I'm not angry." "You're not..." "No," he held out the cardigan. "I wanted to return this and to ask you something." She approached slowly, like a deer ready to bolt, and took the cardigan from his hands. Her fingers brushed his for just a second, and he felt how cold they were, how rough from work and worry. "Why?" The question came out quieter than he intended. "The wallet was right there. I know you saw it. I know you need money, so why didn't you take it?" Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, her jaw set in a stubborn line. "Because it wasn't mine." "That's it. That's the only reason." Should there be another reason? The simplicity of it gutted him. She looked genuinely confused, as if the thought of taking something that didn't belong to her had never even been a real option, despite everything she'd lost, despite everything she was going through. "You wrote that I work too hard," he said, his voice rough. "That I deserve peace." "You do. How would you know what I deserve? You don't know anything about me." Elena met his eyes for the first time, really met them, and the sadness in her gaze was so profound it made his chest ache. "I know you sleep in your office instead of going home. I know you never eat the food your chef prepares, that it all goes to waste. I know you have pictures of people on your desk, but they're all facing down, like you can't bear to look at them. And I know that when you think no one's watching, you look out these windows like you're searching for something you lost a long time ago. Dominic opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Everyone deserves peace, Mr. Ashford, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Even people who have forgotten what it looks like. My daughter taught me that before. Her voice cracked. Before she left. I know about Lily. The words came out before he could stop them. Alina's face crumpled. How? I had you investigated. There was no point in lying now. I thought you were going to steal from me. I thought everyone was trying to take something. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks, and the fact that she didn't look surprised, didn't look betrayed, only made it worse. Did I pass your test, Mr. Ashford? No, his voice broke. You made me realize I failed mine. They stood in silence, the city lights flickering beyond the windows, two broken people in a room full of expensive things that meant nothing. Cardigan, Dominic said finally. The one you gave me. It was your daughter's, wasn't it? Alina's hand moved to the fabric, clutching it like a lifeline. She wore it to every treatment, said it made her feel like she had wings, that she could fly away from the pain. I kept it after. I couldn't let it go. You gave it to me. You needed it more than I did in that moment. Dominic's carefully constructed walls, the ones he'd built over years of betrayal and disappointment, shattered completely. I don't understand you. I've spent millions on security systems, on background checks, on learning how to spot liars, and I still can't understand how someone who has nothing can give away everything. Don't have nothing. Alina's voice was fierce suddenly, strong in a way he'd never heard from her. I have my daughter's memory. I have the lessons she taught me. I have the knowledge that when she looked at me in her final moments, she saw someone she was proud of. That's not nothing, Mr. Ashford. That's everything. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Is that all you needed, sir? She was retreating back into formality, armor against the vulnerability of the moment. I should get back to work. He moved to his desk, pulling out a piece of paper and a pen. His hands shook as he wrote, the numbers blurring before his eyes. When he finished, he held it out to her. This is a check. It covers your medical debt, all of it. Stared at the paper like it was a snake. I can't accept this. You can. She stepped back, her hands clasped behind her back. I won't. Alina, don't be stubborn. I need to do this myself. Her voice was quiet but unyielding. My daughter's debt is my responsibility. Accepting your money would feel like I'm buying my way out of remembering her, and I won't do that. I can't. Dominic had never met anyone who turned down $127,000. This is insane. You're killing yourself working 3 jobs. Then I'll die knowing I honored her memory my way. She met his eyes, and the strength in her gaze was staggering. You can't buy your way into feeling less guilty, Mr. Ashford, and I can't accept charity just because you finally see me as human. Truth of it hit him like a physical blow. However, Alina continued, her voice softening slightly, if you're serious about making amends, I have a different suggestion. Anything. Your night security guard, Marcus, he has a daughter. I've seen her picture on his desk. She's going through cancer treatment at St. Mary's. He can't afford the experimental drug trial she needs. Maybe instead of trying to save me, you could save her. Dominic closed his eyes. How do you know about Marcus's daughter? I pay attention to people, even the ones who don't pay attention to me. He made a decision. I'll cover Marcus's daughter's treatment, all of it, but on one condition. Alina's expression turned wary. What condition? You let me give you a real position, not as a maid, as director of employee welfare. You'd work with HR to identify staff who are struggling, create programs to help them. A real salary, real hours, so you can stop sleeping on park benches and eating crackers for dinner. Would you do that? Because you see people, Alina, really see them. That's a skill worth more than any business degree, and my company has been running on spreadsheets and profit margins for so long we forgot there were actual human beings behind the numbers. He paused. And because I need to learn how to be the person you thought I was when I was sleeping. Alina was quiet for a long moment. The crane I left you, do you know what it means? No. Japanese tradition, folding 1,000 cranes grants you a wish. Lily and I folded cranes during her treatment. We made it to 963 before. She couldn't finish. What did she wish for? That I'd be happy again someday, that I'd let someone help me. Alina's smile was watery. I think she'd like you, Mr. Ashford. Underneath all the suspicion and walls, I think she'd see the same thing I saw when you were sleeping. What's that? Someone who's just as scared and tired as the rest of us. 3 months later, Dominic's office looked different. The walls were lined with photographs, faces of employees and their families. People he'd taken the time to actually know. His desk held a laptop, a coffee mug that said "World's Okayest Boss" that Patricia had given him as a joke, and 963 origami cranes hanging from the ceiling on invisible thread. Alina entered without knocking now, carrying 2 coffees and a folder full of employee requests. "Morning, Mr. Ashford. It's Dominic. I've told you 100 times." She smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made his chest tight. Old habits. They worked side by side through the morning, reviewing cases of employees who needed help. A single mother struggling with childcare costs, a warehouse worker whose father needed surgery, a junior analyst dealing with student loans. One by one, they found solutions, created programs, built safety nets for people who'd been falling through the cracks. At noon, Alina stood to leave for her lunch break. She still brought crackers sometimes, but now she ate them by choice, not necessity. "Alina," Dominic called as she reached the door. "Thank you." "What?" "For not stealing from me," she laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. "You're welcome, though technically I did steal something." Cynicism. "I took it that night and never gave it back." After she left, Dominic pulled out a sheet of pale yellow paper and began to fold. His fingers were clumsy at first, unpracticed, but he'd been learning. Each night, after everyone went home, he folded cranes. He'd made 37 so far. Only 963 to go. He didn't know what he'd wish for when he finished. Maybe he'd wish that Alina would finally accept his dinner invitation. Maybe he'd wish that the darkness that had consumed him for so many years would stay gone. Maybe he'd wish that Lily could see what her mother had become, how her lessons had rippled out to touch hundreds of lives. Or maybe he'd wish for the thing Alina had given him that night when she'd covered him with her daughter's cardigan and told him he deserved peace. Maybe he'd wish for the ability to see people the way she did. Not as threats or opportunities or variables in an equation, but as humans. Complicated, flawed, struggling, beautiful humans. The crane took shape beneath his fingers, its wings spreading slowly. When he finished, he added it to the others hanging above his desk, a constellation of paper and hope and second chances. Outside his window, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun. Somewhere down there, Alina was probably helping someone, probably seeing something everyone else had missed, probably changing someone's life without even realizing it. Dominic smiled and picked up another sheet of paper. He had work to do. 962 cranes to fold. 1,000 acts of faith to complete. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to become the person Alina had always believed he could be. The person he'd been pretending to be when she'd taught him what it meant to actually be human. If this story reminded you that kindness still exists, that second chances are real, and that sometimes the people we suspect the most are the ones saving us from ourselves, hit that subscribe button. Share this in the comments. What's one act of unexpected kindness that changed your life? And if you believe in the power of giving without expecting anything in return, give this video a like. Because stories like Alina's deserve to be told, and people like her deserve to be seen. Now go fold a crane. Make a wish. And remember, the greatest test isn't whether someone passes yours, it's whether you pass theirs.